Hi there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks for being with us today. I appreciate you tuning in. And if you've been around the block here with Pursuing Freedom for a while, I appreciate your loyal dedication to checking into these episodes because I've got an awesome interview for you today. And if you're new to the show, well, my friend, buckle up. Welcome aboard. We've got a great show in store for you with my good friend, Kelly Resendez. Now, let me tell you, this is like going to be the longest intro ever because this woman is so dang extraordinary. And I met her through a national women's organization that she's one of the co-owners of called GoBundance for Women. And she blew my mind the first time I met her. And so I've been secretly praying that over the course of the last 3.5 years, I would track her down to get her on the show today. So Kelly spent decades as a mortgage loan originator before moving into the executive level with a national green energy financing company. But she's also the author of the best-selling book, Big Voices. She is a keynote speaker. She's a coach. She is an amazing human. And I could go on, but I'd love to have Kelly go ahead and welcome yourself to the show. Thank you so much for being here today, Kelly.
Yes, Erin, it's awesome to be here with you.
Every time I'm with you, Kelly, I'm always blown away by some nugget of wisdom that you share or moments where you'll catch me in my limiting beliefs or my stories that are holding me back. And I just think you have such a magical way of helping people break through those barriers and those limiting beliefs and the self-sabotage. And so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, if you could take us back a little bit, how did your journey unfold? I know you were one of the top 1% of originators in the nation. So talk us through your story as an originator in the real estate space, and then we'll kind of just take it from there.
Absolutely. So I'll just start from the very beginning. Grew up in a small town. So many benefits of being in a small town. I think one of them is that you have to learn how to get along with everyone. In reality today, a lot of times if they don't like their friends, they're going to go find new ones. And there's just so many great, opportunities to develop some life skills growing up in a small town. I was definitely one of those people that I'd classify as an overachiever. I had very ambitious goals when it came to, what I wanted to achieve in my career. And I started very young. I started in the banking industry when I was still in high school, and I stayed with that company for about 16 years. So for those of you listening, it went from, First Interstate Bank to Home Savings to Washington Mutual. So was there for a long time. And what I can tell you is that the reason why I definitely got into mortgage was for money. My lower, I would say, just the person I used to be, my lower self, was definitely impressed by money. And somebody that walked into my bank branch that was calling on our branch was a loan officer, and she showed me her paycheck, and I was sold. I was like, I don't know what the job is, but I'm going to do that because I definitely had lofty goals there. So when I got into mortgage, I had probably the greatest gift that anybody could have gotten from the first month that I started. So when I started, the company, which was at the time Home Savings, was promoting Brian Buffini's tour. And I'm sure all your real estate listeners out there know who Brian Buffini was. And this is when his events were really small. This was back in 1998 in Sacramento. And so I'm just a baby, coming out of college, starting this, and listen to this man just share a lot of, what I would say, just systematic advice for how you could build a business. And what I realized, though, as I was connecting with a lot of local real estate agents, is that they didn't have anyone to hold them accountable. And I knew I was good at that. And so I really made a decision that day that I was going to model my business around helping hold real estate agents accountable to the goals that they made and set for themselves. So I started, in conjunction with a title company, we started hosting events on a monthly basis and bringing all these like-minded people together. Now, what I didn't realize, fast forward, masterminds would end up being kind of what I became obsessed with. That's what we were kind of building, right? Was a mastermind of people that had mutual interests and wanted to help support one another and hold each other accountable. So it's kind of how I started. I did everything opposite than every other originator in the business that was really focused on refinance at the time. And I really just built a business around purchase. And what I tried to do was just add massive value out of the gates. And for every real estate agent that I did a deal with, I always wanted to make sure that that person on the backside of the deal, I also had connections with. So, my realtor base grew really quickly just, with the efforts that I put in. And so by the early 2000s, I started hosting my own events, which I called realtor coaching, and just started bringing in larger groups of real estate agents where I could share, just inspiration and business systems that would help take their, business to the next level. And Erin, as you and I both know, like if we did what we knew we should be doing, all of us would be successful, but it's not that easy. It's the execution. It's not information. So many people, like now we have access to every ounce of information that could explode our lives and our wealth and our careers and our health and our relationships. It's our inability to execute that holds most people back. And that's really what I wanted to be with the real estate community, was that, hey, here's information, but we also want to help hold you accountable and support you on some of these things. So by, early 2000s, we were helping 50 to 60 customers a month. And I'd built a team that really, supported me. And we continued on that until I kind of made a decision over time. Although I was great at originating, I was great at building deep relationships with bigger, firms or builders or things like that. I knew that I wanted to really do more and support more people. And that's when I made the decision at the top of my career, where many people were like, what on earth is she doing? I made a complete pivot and decided to take an executive role at a up and coming company. And that was 13 years ago. And never have I been more, grateful for the courage that I had to have at that point, in order to be able to do that and let go of everything that I had built in order to really, achieve what I would say is my life's purpose, which is helping other people really just increase joy. And I get to do that, at my role here at Good Leap as well. So that's kind of what my career looked like. And it's been definitely a roller coaster since then. And roller coaster, I mean, fun adventure. We've done a lot since I joined the company. We pivoted from just being a mortgage company and a small solar company to being the nation's largest solar financing company. And we also do green energy financing for people that are, putting home improvements in their home, like a heating and air conditioning system or roof or things like that, in addition to it. So, and during that time, had a couple kids, got a divorce, definitely written a couple books and done a lot of things, but that's kind of an overview of my career.
It's so insane because you and I have spent a lot of time together, but I didn't realize how many similarities there are in our
Yeah.
journey. And you started a little earlier than I did, but funny enough, when I fell into the business and went 100% commission in 07 and then started to struggle, the first thing someone told me was to hire a coach. And Buffini and Company was the company I hired. And
Yeah.
I was immediately in rooms with all realtors and myself as a lender in these accountability mastermind meetings. And it's so funny because it's evolved. And as I've coached others now, especially in the lending space and the real estate side, I'm always encouraging those accountability groups and mastermind groups because I see so many people trying to go it alone and as an island. And the problem with that, as you mentioned, is that there's no shortage of playbook. It's just the inconsistency in execution that creates the inconsistency in income. And it's usually because of whatever mumbo jumbo is going on upstairs in our head.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about the evolution of you as a sort of, let's just call it like ambitious, eager, hungry, hustle culture, do whatever it takes. You start killing it and achieving at the highest level. I mean, 50 to 60 closings a month is probably laughable to many that are listening who are like, I'd like to do that in a year, So first of all, talk me through how you managed your own success, because I see a lot of people resist their true potential for fear of sacrifice. And also the reality of burnout is palpable. So what did it look like for you? Did you experience burnout? How did you pivot? How did you navigate that journey from the beginning to those high levels that require a new way of thinking and a new way of doing?
Absolutely. What a great question, because so many people, you don't realize that as we expand in our career, we have to constantly be expanding our mindset and our skills at the same time. And when I mean skills, I mean emotional skills. So that's super important. So I will tell you, prior to 2004, I was as burnt out as they came, but I didn't even realize it because I didn't know anything different. The way that I survived prior to that was just wake up, work, burn myself out all day. So by the time I was done, I was just absolutely exhausted, right? I was eating lunch at my desk. I was literally not in my stomach when I got a phone call, just because I didn't realize that I wasn't doing it in a way that felt great. I had my awakening in 2004, and I'll forever be grateful for it. I'll honestly tell you that it started a little bit before I had my daughter in 2003, but I didn't really get to the point in which I realized that all areas of our life needed to be in alignment for you to be fully fulfilled. And so I may have started down the path of aligning certain things. So, I have just I had the best leader that I worked with that you could imagine. Her name's Wendy Muir. She was my manager for many years. And she called me into her office about a week before I had my daughter in 2003. And she just was like, Kelly, please don't do what I did. Like, I thought that I could do it all. And really what I realized is I couldn't. I didn't put the kids first. She was a wonderful mom, but she didn't really make that firm commitment that it was non-negotiable. And so at that moment, I made the decision when I had my daughter that my schedule would be non-negotiable, that there was not a way, like it was, I get to the office at 9:30, I leave at 5, no matter what, every day, so that I could spend the quality time with her that I wanted. And so I'm grateful for that. But my true awakening came in 2004. My mom, who was very similar to me, they always say that you have one parent whose approval you're constantly seeking. It was definitely my mom. And she was diagnosed with dementia a few years before. And she was very young. She was only 57 at the time that she got diagnosed. And so how it really happened, I would say like my final awakening, I was reading a book, and in the book, it talked about, what statistically your chance of getting similar, at the time it was, they had diagnosed her as early onset Alzheimer's, said I had a 50% chance. And it was literally like overnight, I went from my mom's sick to, oh my gosh, I don't have very much time. And that was really what shook me up a little bit. And I started to realize that if I'm only going to live, a certain amount of time, or statistically, I only have a 50% chance that I'm going to live this, I need to make the most of it. So I started to really get obsessed about health. And then I started to research, neuroscience and mindset and being present. I'll tell you, I didn't even know what being present meant when I started my journey and found Eckhart Tolle or Deepak Chopra or others during that journey. And so once I got to this point of recognizing that, oh my gosh, like I'm not really present, I'm not really like, it was almost like an outer body experience every day of wake up, go to work, do this, do that, all of these other things. And I didn't know what true joy was. And so that year in 2004 is when everything changed. And I just started to prioritize my own emotional and physical well-being. I got physically healthy. I got mentally healthy. And I started to really set stronger boundaries for myself so that I wouldn't feel that burnout and fatigue that others did. And during that, I also started to choose what I would say was kind of like a theme of the year. Because when you get into personal growth and development, what they don't tell you is that it can become an obsession, and you can literally just be trying to do too many things at once. So I would just pick one big thing every single year that I wanted to focus on. So all of 2007, I focused on learning how to be more detached. And wouldn't you know it, by 2008, when the whole market collapsed, I was literally like, shoulder shrug, let's go. Where's our opportunity? Didn't even miss a beat and continued to build in a market where other people were failing. And so I would tell you that that major shift came early. I'm grateful it happened before I hit major burnout. Before I had my daughter, I definitely had burnout. Our body keeps score, right? It definitely, my neck was hurting, my back was hurting. I had a lot of different physical challenges that were going on. And then once I really put my health first and started to move forward, I started to experience life a lot differently. And then in that period, realized my mom didn't have early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. She actually had a different form that's 100% spontaneous. And so I took it upon myself to be like, you know what? I want to live to like 120. So I'm going to make those choices and just start to take care of myself on a regular basis.
I'm laughing because when you start giving the timeline, it sounds to me like you were right around year 7 when your daughter was born,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah.
And I think today is her 21st birthday. Did I see that
Mm.
online?
It was yesterday on the 19th of March. Happy birthday, Paige, if you're listening.
So great. Well, the reason I'm laughing is because it was my daughter was about to be born
Mm,
when I went to a work event, and I was, 8, 9 months pregnant and burning out, working 24/7 and second guessing my own desire for success, frankly, because I was so burned out and I just
yeah.
didn't think that it was worth it. This didn't feel like freedom. And there were women at the table that were ahead of me in the game, meaning doing more volume than me. Kids are a little bit older than mine. And I remember asking them, how are you doing this? I feel like I'm working 24/7 just to survive my own success. Like, how are you even doing it? And they all admitted that they would get home, and after they put their kids to bed at 7, 8 o'clock at night, they'd be back in their home office doing loan documents till 10, 11,
Yeah.
12 o'clock at night. And I remember coming home to my husband thinking to myself, there's no way. And as after my
Mm-mm.
daughter was born, I just held her and cried, wondering, do I have a place in this industry? Because I don't know how to put in the boundaries. And
Yeah.
so my next question for you is, how do you advise or help people believe that they can do both? Because I think
Yeah.
so many people fear that they're going to lose their edge if
Yes.
they try to
Mm,
soften into the art of detachment and the art of allowing and doing that personal growth and personal development, that they're not going to be able to have the best of both worlds. But meanwhile, they don't have the best of both worlds because they are surviving this roller coaster of
yeah.
success, or they're convincing themselves to play small because they're afraid of too much.
Yeah.
So, how do you talk people through that mindset
Yeah.
shift of like, no, 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 you can earn a ton of money and
Yeah.
have present moments and be joyful?
Absolutely. So the first, I would say, most important belief that an abundance mindset, which, I always tell people, like, especially when you're building your life, you always want to start with a vision for how you want to feel rather than what you want to do. And Western society really hasn't programmed us that way, right? It's just, what are your goals? Those are all about doing. Those are all about action. Especially as women, we're more about feeling and being, and that's what's going to bring us that richness in our life's experience. So if we start with our vision, then we do some actionable goals that are going to help us get there. The next thing we need to check in is on our mindset. And so I really share and inspire others to have an abundance mindset. And the number one belief is you are the creator of your own experience, of your own success. You're also the creator of your own failure. You must take radical ownership for every area of your life. If your relationship isn't doing well, you have to own it, or at least co-own it. It's easy to blame. It's much more challenging to own. So that's one thing that you have to realize, is that you can create whatever life you choose for yourself. And so many people are in scarcity, which I'm afraid to tell the real estate agent or the customer that I'm not available because I'm in fear of losing them. I would tell you that I went through that. People would say, like, I had a number one rule. This is going to sound really interesting to most people listening. I never answered my phone. I told people I don't ever answer my phone. Just want to let you know, time is something that I have power over, and I don't fall victim to the next phone call syndrome that so many people do. Because when you are producing at that level, I mean, imagine if you're just focused on one thing and then you lose focus. You're focused on another thing, then you lose focus. The phone can be such a hindrance. And when I look at the beginning of my career, I believe a lot of the success that I had was because I was so focused. Somebody had to call the front office in order to be able to get me. And now people are texting with their spouse or their partner all day long, and we're losing focus, or somebody's calling for something that really isn't that important and we lose focus. So, I would tell you that when you believe that you're the creator, you get to choose the way that you build your business, the way that you build your schedule, the way that you build your finances, your relationship, all these other things. You take that radical responsibility for it and know that, every time I say yes to something else, like a phone call, I'm really saying no to the things that I was choosing to be focused on. So, I'm always about educating business owners, especially all your listeners that are really business owners, right? If you don't have a system, like a true system for how you operate, and that's who you're being and what you're doing, and the strategies that you deploy, like you're just going to be like everyone else, which is dabbling with success. And a lot of people have a little bit of success, but if I went out and told them, like, hey, Aaron, I need you to double your business in 6 months, would you know exactly how to do it? Because you know where the levers are. You know what you could pull. You know what you could do, maybe that next hire or whatever it is. And most people don't know how to do that. And it's because they haven't yet created a system for where they want to get to. And so there's a few things, there's constraints, right, that we have to work with. Number one, identifying your own human capacity is critical. I call this an abundance audit. And this audit is going to be looking at all of the time that you spend in your business and really just testing the things that you spend time with. Spend just that few minutes after every phone call or every meeting and ask yourself, did I get more energy? Did I lose energy? Or am I neutral? Because we really need to start thinking about ourselves, like Brendan Bouchard describes, as a power plant. I'm an energy producer. And most of us we just let go of energy all day. Like so many things that we're doing that just deplete our energy. And that's where burnout comes from. And we've got to sprinkle in some of those things throughout our day for connection. Like I have done a lot today, been super productive, but this call is going to give me a little bit of energy because I get to share. And so it's like, I've got to be able to sprinkle in the connection, which is really the heartbeat of what we're here for. I mean, that if really we boil everything down in life, it's not what we do. It's just that sense of experience that we gain from, whether it's accomplishment or connection or adventure or things like that. So going back to mindset, recognizing you're the creator. So you get to choose how you build boundaries in your life. And for myself, I had to have a lot of them. I didn't like working with mean people. And for anybody in real estate, we've all dealt with mean people. And I just had a no policy. It was just no. Like, if you're not going to treat my team the same way that you treat me, or you're not going to treat the other people in the transaction, like I really have no interest in having anything to do with you. But when we realize how often we give away our joy to other people or to external things, that's when we start to realize like, oh, I actually have the power to own my joy. What might that look like? How can I audit, my abundance and start to see where I'm falling out of it so that I can start to make some adjustments? And I'm not telling you, like, there are things in life that I do, even though I don't love them. Like I eat kale. I don't love kale. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I eat it because it's good for me. I spend time with people that are good for me. I limit the amount of time with people that complain or focus on things that I don't think are going to get them to the next level. And it's important that we do that.
I love everything you're saying here. And you're speaking my language, but you knew that already before we started recording this. And I talk a lot about this energy management piece and this auditing of what energizes you and what drains you, and how often we aren't even paying attention to how the energy is leaking right out of our system, and how it's an illusion to think that we're doing our best by showing up low energy to something that really matters.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's almost the hardest work of all. So as you started down this path, And as you operate your life at a high level still today as an executive and the co-owner of a national/international women's organization, and all of the things that you do externally that create that external success and financial abundance, and yet you're still here centered and grounded and present in this experience with me and with yourself and your energy. What does it look like logistically or strategically speaking? Like, how much time do you spend carving out that
Yeah.
that and restore? And then how, I guess not how often, but do you ever find yourself sliding to the negative side of the emotional scale and then recognizing you're there and then doing what you need to do right
Yeah.
then and there to pull yourself out before you go do the next thing?
Absolutely. So a couple things there. Number one of the top ways that we sabotage ourselves in life is not making self-care a priority. So when I look at self-care, it's not like a woo-woo thing. It's just your physical and emotional well-being. So for me, I look at my priorities every day. It's God. I'm very faith-based. So I start my day with the devotional and the Bible, 365 days out of the year. I make sure, because I know my day is going to get full. Then it's my emotional and physical well-being. So then I do my morning ritual. I look at who I want to be. I look at my vision every single day. I look at my priorities every single day to make sure that my calendar, my bank account, my energy all align with those certain things. Because so many of us say family's a priority, and then they get the scraps at the end of the day, right? And then they get the emotional wake of something that went wrong at work when they didn't do anything to deserve it. So for me, again, I just really make sure that I do that, and part of my morning ritual is to look at my goals, look at my vision, make sure that I journal out the things that, I'm either grateful for, I need help with, and then I meditate on a regular basis. And I meditate on things that I know are definitely areas that I need to focus on. And so it just puts my mind in that right state before I check email, before I have a conversation or a meeting that might, throw me off a little bit. And so after that, then it's my sweetheart, Kent, and my kids. They're my next priority. And so I've got to make sure that I'm taking care of myself so that I don't go home and they get the leftover energy, right? And then it's my work, and then it's my finances, and then it's, whatever else is my priority. So when I start there, I just approach every day through that lens. Like, what are my biggest priorities, and how can I make sure that I stay in alignment with those things so that I don't deplete myself? And so for me, one of the questions you asked, what happens when I feel myself? Number one, if I know I'm going to be in a sprint for a little while, like we have started the beginning of this year with major priorities with Goodleap. And so I had a lot going on. So the first thing I did was I made an announcement that I have a season, and I tell my kids, I tell my friends, I tell Kent, I tell everyone in my life, like, this season is going to be at maximum capacity for me. I could use a little bit of grace right now because I may not have the same amount of patience or the same amount of emotional tolerance, I would say, that I normally do. And then I know that it's only going to be for a certain period of time. And so it's important that I kind of look at it that way. And then I just look at myself and I watch myself every day. I'm like, I'm getting close to my line. What can I do? Like, I have double bath days sometimes where I take 2 baths that I need to wash away, my day, or I need to spend, time away from other human beings besides Kent or things like that. And so we'll have human free weekends where we really aren't going out and doing a lot of things so that I can recharge, because we're all different. You, I think, recharge when you're around other people. You get a lot, or some, maybe you're like me, maybe you're an ambivert, right? In the middle. I recharge when I'm alone and we're home and doing those kind of things. So, I mean, trust me, I can get close to the line. I don't ever go over the line. I'll be honest with you. I have not been sick since 2009. I put my health first. Like I am super thoughtful about my physical well-being and what goes in my body and how I treat my body. I practice functional medicine. I'm constantly in that state of like, how can I fine tune the way that I feel? And that allows me to stay in, I'd say peak form. Because for me, I want to live a freaking amazing life. I don't want mediocres not in my cards. Like I want the extraordinary. I want the delicious. I want all of that. So I've got to make sure that I really, stay in alignment with that.
I love that so much. And it's funny when you ask that, and I'm over here shaking my head, but the truth of the matter is, I'm very energized by the work I do and the interactions I get to have like this. I mean, even since day one of the podcast in 2018, I realized how energizing it is for me
Yeah.
to be around really talented, curious, high vibes, supportive, brilliant people that energize me for sure. And I love giving, like it energizes me to pour into others. And I love what you said about human free weekends, because I always tell my coaching students, and especially the ones that are operating at a very high level in business and financial world and are struggling to keep their energy at a peak performance in their personal life, their self-care, their health, and their relationships, all of that sometimes starts to suffer as the business and financial pillars start to rise.
Right.
And I always challenge them to take at least one night a month. And this is something that I do, is one night a month. I just get a hotel room by myself. And in the early years of having moved away from the city and into the mountains, I would go down to the city a lot, and I would spend time and spend the night with a friend or spend the night with one of my team members. And I noticed that I wasn't getting the opportunity to reset myself energetically
Yeah.
after a full day of engagement. And so I started doing these solo nights in a hotel, and it's nothing fancy. Like
Yeah.
I go to a Hyatt place for $120 a night, and
Yeah.
I speak to nobody from the
Yeah.
end of my work day of like 5 o'clock ish until the next day. And and I even have a rule: mornings are for me. I don't talk to people before 10 a.m. at the earliest, and only by exception ever before 10 a.m. And ideally nothing before 11. And that gives me as much quiet time as I need
Yeah.
to reset
So
myself and
brilliant.
prepare myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people allow themselves permission because they feel like they have to earn the right to slow down. And
Yeah.
I'm always challenging everybody, no, 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 you slow down so that you can catapult, not
Yes.
crawl, right?
Yeah. But it's so scary. Like you said, like we are hyper productive. We have been programmed to believe that this productivity, this, grind, this, whatever you want to call it, is the path. And it can be. And there's other paths that you can take to get there too. And when I look at it, that's not what I love to do. I don't want to grind. Yeah, for a season, I might be over capacity for a moment, but I'm always going to go back to like having, more alignment in my day. And so, you touched on a few things. Number one, like you've noticed that you feel more powerful when you make this decision. Now, I'm the opposite. I try to load my stuff in the mornings because that's when I'm, that's just the way that I operate best, where, my creativity or other things, maybe I do it a little bit later. It just depends. We're all so uniquely different. And I think what we know to be true is that we can look and see what other people are doing to create success. But we always have to remember that we intuitively know what it's going to take to get to that next level. And these other people just might be reminding us of what it is or showing us that that's not my way. Like there's a lot of amazing women out there that have a different way of doing things. And it's like, that's great. And it's still not for me. I think we just need to accept that, this programming that we have, that there is just one way of hard work and grind and, being hyper productive it's just not the only way. And letting go of all the beliefs. I always say the best thing that you can do, like if you wanted a breakthrough today, the best thing that you could do is hit Control Alt Delete on all your beliefs and start from scratch. Take away everything that your parents told you. This is from politics to, everything. I mean, we're one of the largest green energy financing companies. And, I was raised Republican. So many people think that climate change is a political issue when it's really not. It's all about what's best for the environment and what's also best fiscally. So there's a lot of things that people just need to hit Control Alt Delete on and start to build belief systems around what really is going to help you line up with that vision for how you want to feel in your life. Like if I'm not feeling great and I'm constantly complaining about problems, maybe I need to change my belief around problems. This was the greatest challenge that I had in mortgage and real estate when I was impacting people on a higher level. Like all they did was complain about problems. And I'm like, problems are what create your value proposition. Like look at them as amazing challenges that you get to highlight and showcase your expertise and learn how to maybe systemize something, in the future. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of that. Used to drive me bonkers when I would have listing and buying agents calling me towards the end of a deal when maybe for whatever reason we couldn't close escrow on time, right? You can't close escrow on time every time, whether it's the buyer's fault, the seller's fault, the appraiser's fault, you name it. We had seasons where things were backed up. I mean, you were there. There's a lot of reasons why a deal might not close right. And the emotion that would come from these people at the very end of the transaction was up here, right? And so one of the things that I did in the very beginning was I'd have conversations with both agents and the buyer and say, you know what, I'd ask all of them, through it, like, do you remember what day of the week you moved in on? And most people would be like, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, the difference between a Monday and a Friday towards the end of this transaction is going to feel like a lifetime. But can we just agree that at some point you're going to forget all about that? So let's just agree that if it ends up closing 5 days late or whatever it might be for whatever reason, that we're all just going to be okay with that. And it changed the experience because people get really wound up when they have expectations that aren't met. So if you diffuse the expectation, then people let go a little bit more. And so there's so many things that we can do in our business to be able to do that, to be able to see like, where do I see that emotion coming down the line? And how do I strategically, shift things so that whatever challenges there might be get better over time, instead of it just being like Groundhog's Day. Because I'll tell you, starting in this business 26 years ago, the problems I had in 98 when I started are the exact same as they are today, just a little bit different, right? Different prices, different interest rates, but they're all slightly the same.
Totally.
And that's what I would tell people, is just that when you see challenges is just amazing. Or you shift your language around things. Like, for example, I don't use the word overwhelmed. I don't use the word problem. I don't use the word busy. I've eliminated words that I know my brain views as negative, not so I can just be this positive person all the time. I know that there are challenges that I have to face in my life, but at the same time, I just approach them much differently. So my experience is much different.
I love that. And one of the things I want to leave the listeners with is something you alluded to earlier about there not being one way and all these things. And you've talked a lot about, how you feel and how you want to experience life and how important it is to feel joyful and to prepare yourself and yourself literally before you give yourself away to everybody else. And I just want to highlight something there, that so many of us fall into this trap of either admiration or jealousy of someone else's external achievement without really knowing what we're admiring. And the truth of the matter is that this emotional journey we're all on, and this pursuit of joy and abundance and, fulfillment, it's an inside game. And so you can look at someone's external achievements all day long and compare yours to theirs. But what I would encourage the listeners to do is seek out the people who you admire, the way they show up, the way they carry themselves, the way they feel genuinely, because how they feel shines through in the way that they interact with you. And find those type of people to admire and to mirror, because we don't know what we're comparing ourselves to when we're only looking at someone's external achievements. We don't know the suffering that's going on behind the scenes. So I just really appreciate you sharing all that, and the mentor that you had. And I had a mentor like that too.
Well, and
So
when you think about abundance, like one abundance block that people have are just beliefs that, maybe money's bad because they see somebody else that's had a lot of success or money and they've done it the wrong way, where maybe they've sacrificed their relationships or their health or whatever it might be. And the biggest thing you have to remember is just there's a different way. There's a way that you create. There's that way that you really can feel supported. And like you said, finding those people that you admire is something that needs to be an intention, because that's another way that I see people really sabotage themselves, is believing they have to do it all on their own. And that's where, the power of these mastermind communities come in, because you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people intentionally. You're intentionally doing a couple things, which are challenging for most of us. Number one, you have to learn how to ask for help. That is
yep.
the one thing. No matter what it was, that was one thing I was never afraid to do, is ask for help. And I look at, whether stuff is neuroscience or woo-woo, like my life has been guided. I'll give you a perfect example. I made a decision to, spend a little bit more time speaking or coaching in the mortgage space. And I write this down at a Tony Robbins event. Okay. So I'm literally writing it down right before lunch. And I write this down and I'm like, I need to connect with more people that can help me with this. And this was many years ago. I go to lunch, I'm walking down the street, I look to the right, and Tom Ferry's sitting there. And all of you listening probably know who Tom Ferry is. So I walked over and I'm like, hey, this is so interesting. I was just writing this down. I was hoping that I could connect with you. I know that you built something similar in the real estate community. And Tom's like, of course. I ended up flying down to Southern California. He opened up his office and his business to me for me to really check it out. And Tom ended up referring me to his own personal coach, who I worked with for over a year, and got that next project off the ground, which was building a platform for mortgage people. And so it's like, you just never know what type of help you need, but most people would have just walked by and not said anything. And
I love that.
that's where, masterminds are. It's not just about being coached. It's about co-creating possibility together. So like, I knew you needed this, and so I'm going to make these connections for you that might make things a little bit more easy for you to achieve, what your goals are. Or maybe you need accountability. And that's really at GoBundance Women. We want to help ambitious, business owners or leaders that want to really get to that next level through being able to provide this type of support to you.
I know. I was just going to say that's why I love GoBundance so much, because I always encourage people to find the room there where you can hang around people that remind you of your future. And
Just say that one more time.
just finding the room where you can hang around people that remind you of your future. Because we want to have, our analytical brain wants to have it all figured out, the distance and the path and each step along the way from here to the outcome we desire. But it's in the conversations with the people that remind us of our future that the unexpected solutions or ideas or creativity arises. It doesn't come from our analytical brain conjuring up all the answers. It comes from collaboration. So I do want to respect your time, and I want to close it with just sharing how people can learn about GoBundance, find you, follow you, all the things.
Absolutely. So, I've got an amazing 3-episode podcast series for you that you can download at www.downloadthepod.com. I go through some of the most common ways that, especially female ambitious business leaders sabotage their own success. And it's going to give you some real actionable steps there. And you can learn a lot more about GoBundance Women through that as well. And we just invite you to check it out. You can book a call through that if you want more information now. We're all headed to Costa Rica soon. So if that piques your interest too, we can definitely connect on that. But Erin, thank you so much, because I can tell you, you being a part of GoBundance Women, it's been an honor just watching you, get to this next level in your life. And I'm just grateful for our time here today.
I am as well. Oh my gosh. I mean, we could go on for hours.
I know.
I could eat you up. I love everything you have to share today. And I'm sure that the listeners are feeling grateful that they've tuned in thus far. So thank you, Kelly. I love you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
To all my friends out there, as always, I implore you, if you love this content, please find a way to leave a 5-star review wherever you're consuming it, because it helps us continue to attract these guests like Kelly that are so amazing and help us all on the journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.